Admiral Kim Hannah felt the ground vibrate beneath her boots as the massive alien transport ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. The sky darkened as their enormous hulls blocked out the sun, casting long shadows across the spaceport. She had seen pictures of Confederation vessels before, but nothing had prepared her for their sheer size and elegance. The human shuttles parked nearby looked like toys in comparison. The lead ship touched down with surprising gentleness for something so massive. Steam hissed from cooling vents as the landing ramp extended. Admiral Kim adjusted her uniform and stood straighter, knowing that this moment would be remembered in history books. First contact with the Galactic Confederation was supposed to be humanity's greatest achievement, but something about the aliens' behavior during the preliminary communications had left her uneasy. Ambassador Veltar emerged first, his reptilian form towering over the human delegation. His scales caught the light and shifted colors like oil on water. Behind him came a parade of alien species that Kim had only seen in classified intelligence reports. There was a floating jellyfish-like creature that communicated through flashing lights, a crystalline being that tinkled like wind chimes when it moved, and several others that defied easy description. Humans, Veltar's voice boomed through the translation device strapped to his throat. The Confederation has decided to bestow upon your primitive species a gift of immeasurable value. Kim noticed how he emphasized the word primitive and felt her jaw clench. The preliminary communications had been full of similar subtle insults, but humanity needed this relationship to work. Earth's resources were running low, and the promise of galactic trade was too important to risk over wounded pride. Captain Lee Jun stood beside her, his engineer's eyes already scanning the alien vessels with professional interest. He was one of humanity's brightest minds, someone who could look at any machine and understand its purpose within minutes. His calm expression gave Kim confidence that whatever the aliens were planning, Lee would figure it out. The cargo haulers behind the delegation began their work. Massive mechanical arms extended from the transport ships, lifting enormous containers and setting them down with precision. As the first container opened, Kim felt her heart sink. What spilled out looked like nothing more than a junkyard's collection of broken parts. Twisted metal beams lay scattered across the ground like broken bones. Hull plating showed deep scratches and corrosion that spoke of decades of neglect. Weapon systems that might have once been impressive now looked like ancient relics, their surfaces dulled by time and wear. Some pieces were so damaged that Kim could not even guess their original purpose. These are components from our most advanced warships, Veltar continued, his voice carrying barely concealed amusement. Technology that is thousands of years beyond your current capabilities. We estimate it will take your species several decades to even begin understanding these systems. The other aliens made sounds that the translation matrix could not convert, but their body language suggested laughter. The floating jellyfish creature pulsed with rapid flashes of light, while the crystalline being's chimes took on a mocking tone. Kim realized that this was not the generous gift it had been presented as during the preliminary negotiations. Of course, Veltar added with false concern, we understand that your species is still learning the basics of space travel. These components may prove challenging for minds that have not yet mastered faster-than-light travel or energy manipulation. But we have faith that with enough time and effort, you will find some use for them. Captain Lee walked closer to the pile of scrap, his expression remaining carefully neutral. Kim watched him examine several pieces, noting how his eyes lingered on certain components. She had worked with Lee long enough to recognize when he was thinking hard about something. And right now his mind was clearly racing. We are grateful for this generous gift, Kim replied, forcing diplomacy into her voice despite the insult. Humanity has always learned by studying the achievements of others. Veltara's scaled lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. Excellent. We'll return in 50 years to observe your progress. Perhaps by then you will have managed to identify the purpose of some of these components. The alien delegation began moving back toward their ships, clearly considering their business complete. Kim noticed that none of them had offered technical assistance or even basic information about the technology they were leaving behind. This was not cooperation between equals, a condescension from superior beings to lesser ones. As the transport ships lifted off, their engines creating whirlwinds that scattered dust across the spaceport, Kim approached Captain Lee. He was still studying the alien components, but now his expression had changed. Instead of confusion or disappointment, she saw something that looked almost like excitement. "What do you think?" she asked quietly. Lee picked up a piece of crystalline material that hummed with residual energy. "They think they gave us junk," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "But they made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "They assumed we would see this the same way they do." Lee gestured toward the scattered components. "To them, these are obsolete parts that no longer serve their purpose. But I can see at least 7 different technological approaches represented here, maybe more." Kim felt a spark of hope. Meaning they just gave us a comprehensive sample of galactic technology, whether they meant to or not." Lee's eyes were bright with possibility. Each species develops technology based on their own evolutionary path. They never share their secrets, never combine their approaches. But we're not bound by their limitations. As the alien ships disappeared into the sky, Kim looked at the mountain of scrap with new eyes. What had seemed like an insult might actually be an opportunity. The aliens had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt and innovate, assuming that humans would be as rigid in their thinking as the established galactic powers. "How long do you need?" she asked. Lee smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. "Give me 2 years and the best team Earth has to offer. I think we can surprise them when they come back." Kim nodded, already planning how to keep this project secret from Confederation observers. The aliens had made their intentions clear through their condescending behavior. This was not the beginning of an equal partnership, but a test that humanity was expected to fail. When they returned in 50 years, they would likely find justification for placing Earth under their direct control. But Captain Lee's confidence was infectious. As she watched him begin sorting through the components with growing enthusiasm, Kim began to believe that humanity might have a few surprises of its own to offer the galaxy. Captain Lee Jun walked through the corridors of the underground military facility, his footsteps echoing off the reinforced walls. 3 days had passed since the Confederation ships had departed, leaving behind their supposed gift of ancient technology. Those 3 days had been filled with sleepless nights and countless hours of analysis. But now, Lee finally had answers. The holographic display room hummed with quiet energy as he entered. Banks of computers lined the walls there, screens showing streams of data that had been collected from every piece of alien scrap. The centerpiece was a massive 3-dimensional projection that floated in the middle of the room, showing detailed scans of each component the aliens had left behind. Admiral Kim Hanna arrived first, followed by the rest of the team that had been hastily assembled to study the alien technology. Dr. Park Mina, Earth's leading expert on exotic materials, took her seat at the conference table. Colonel Cho Wook, whose intelligence network had been gathering information about galactic civilizations for years, positioned himself where he could see both the projection and the entrance. Several other specialists filled the remaining chairs, each one representing the best humanity had to offer in their respective fields. "Before we begin," Lee said, activating the holographic controls, "I want everyone to forget everything they think they know about alien technology. What we received 3 days ago is not what it appears to be." The projection shifted, highlighting different components in various colors. Each color represented a different alien civilization, and the pattern that emerged was remarkable. Instead of random junk, the display showed a carefully curated collection of technologies from across the galaxy. "They think they gave us junk," Lee continued, his voice gaining confidence as he spoke. "But look at this carefully. We have shield generators from the Altoni Empire, the same civilization that held off the Confederation for 3 centuries before being absorbed. These weapon cores came from the Bulgarian hegemony, whose military doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower. And these hull materials represent at least 7 different species, each with their own approach to starship construction." Mina leaned forward in her chair, her scientific curiosity overriding her initial skepticism. "The composition analysis confirms it. Each piece shows a completely different technological philosophy. The Altani generators use crystalline matrices to manipulate energy fields, while the Brigarian cores rely on controlled fusion reactions. They should not work together. That's exactly the point, Lee replied, his eyes beginning to gleam with excitement. The aliens see incompatibility because each species develops technology in isolation, following their own evolutionary paths. They never considered combining different approaches because their thinking is limited by millions of years of tradition. The room fell silent as the implications began to sink in. Colonel Cho-wook was the first to speak, his intelligence training helping him see the larger picture. You're suggesting that we can succeed where they failed because we approach problems differently. More than that, Lee said, manipulating the holographic display to show how different components might fit together. We're not bound by their limitations. Human engineering has always been about adaptation and innovation. We take existing technologies and find new ways to use them. We can take the best from each civilization and create something entirely new. Kim studied the projections with growing interest. The colored components were beginning to form patterns in her mind, like pieces of a puzzle that had been scattered but could still be assembled. What exactly are you proposing? Lee took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would either launch the most ambitious project in human history or end his career in disgrace. A single vessel that incorporates technology from multiple species in ways that have never been attempted. The aliens discarded these components because they couldn't make them work together in their existing ships. But we're not trying to build an alien ship. We're going to build a human ship. The silence that followed was different from before. It was not the silence of confusion, but the silence of minds working through complex possibilities. Each person in the room was beginning to see the potential, but also the enormous challenges that would need to be overcome. Dr. Park Mina spoke first, her scientific training making her focus on the practical difficulties. The energy requirements alone would be staggering. Each technology operates on different principles, uses different power sources, generates different waste products. Making them work together would require solving hundreds of compatibility problems, which is exactly why no one has ever tried. Italy replied, but we have something they don't. We have fresh perspectives and no preconceived notions about what's possible. Every alien civilization has spent thousands of years perfecting their approach, but that same perfection makes them inflexible. Colonel Cho-wook leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. The Confederation is expecting us to struggle with basic systems for decades. If we could actually make this work, it would give us the element of surprise. They think they know what human technology is capable of. More than that, Lee continued, his voice growing more passionate as he spoke, it could give us the edge we need when they return. Because mark my words, what happened 3 days ago was not charity. This was a test, and they're expecting us to fail. Admiral Kim had been quietly studying the display, but now she looked directly at Lee. Explain that. Lee manipulated the controls again, showing intelligence reports that Colonel Cho's network had gathered about Confederation expansion patterns. Look at their history. They make contact with primitive species, offer them advanced technology, and return decades later to find that the species has failed to make progress. At that point, they declare the species incapable of self-governance and absorb them into the Confederation for their own protection. The pattern was clear once it was pointed out. Dozens of civilizations had followed the same path, accepting Confederation gifts and then being absorbed when they proved unable to master the technology. It was a cycle that had repeated itself across the galaxy for thousands of years. They expect us to spend 50 years trying to understand their individual technologies, Lee continued. By the time they return, we'll have made some progress. But nothing that impresses them. Then they'll decide that humanity needs guidance and protection, and Earth becomes another Confederation protectorate. Dr. Park Mina nodded slowly. But if we can prove that we not only understand their technology but can improve upon it, that changes everything. Exactly. Show them that humanity deserves to be treated as equals, not as children playing with toys. Lee's confidence was infectious, and Admiral Kim could see that the rest of the team was beginning to believe in the possibility. Admiral Kim stood up, her decision made. How long do you need? Lee smiled, the expression transforming his face from that of a worried engineer to a confident innovator. "Give me 2 years and the best team Earth has to offer. I'll build something that will make them regret underestimating humanity." The asteroid belt had always been humanity's wild frontier, a place where miners and explorers carved out dangerous livings among the floating rocks. But now, hidden behind a carefully positioned chunk of iron and nickel, the most ambitious construction project in human history was taking shape. The asteroid, designated as Mining Station Alpha 7, on all official records, was actually something far more significant. Chief Engineer Park Soo floated through the zero-gravity construction bay, his magnetic boots clicking against the metal walkways that had been built around the growing vessel. 18 months had passed since the project began, and what had started as scattered alien components was now becoming something that defied every rule of spacecraft design it ever learned. The ship's hull gleamed with an unusual surface that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. This was not paint or coating, but actual Kalani adaptive armor that had been reverse-engineered and improved by human scientists. The material could harden against impacts, become transparent to certain energy frequencies, or even change shape slightly to improve aerodynamics. No known vessel in the galaxy possessed such versatility. Park activated his personal communicator as he approached the main assembly platform. "Captain Lee, you need to see this. The latest integration tests are showing results that our computer models said were impossible." Captain Lee Jun arrived within minutes, his expression eager but cautious. The past 18 months had been filled with both breakthrough successes and near-catastrophic failures. Every day brought new challenges as technologies from different alien civilizations either worked together in unexpected ways or violently rejected each other. "Show me," Lee said. Securing himself to the platform's safety rail, Park led him to the central power core, where humanity's greatest engineering achievement was taking shape. The reactor chamber contained a fusion of technologies that no single species had ever attempted. Human fusion technology provided the stable base, while alien exotic matter containment systems amplified the energy output by factors that still amazed the engineering team. The Altani energy conduits are carrying power loads that exceed their original specifications by 30%, Park explained, his voice filled with wonder. But instead of overloading, they're actually becoming more efficient. It's the exotic matter is somehow teaching the conduits to handle energy in ways the Altani never discovered. Lee studied the readings on Park's tablet, trying to process what he was seeing. The energy output curves looked like something from a theoretical physics textbook, not a real-world application. What about the weapon systems? Even better. Park guided him to another section of the ship where massive Brigarian weapon housings had been modified to accommodate multiple types of energy weapons. The Brigarian cores are designed for raw power, but we've integrated them with Vorthok targeting systems and Zelian focusing arrays. The result is weapons that can adapt their output based on target composition and defensive measures. They move through the ship's corridors, past workstations where human engineers labored alongside. Robotic systems that had been built using alien computational technology. The fusion of human creativity and alien precision was evident everywhere, from the organic curves of the corridors to the intuitive control interfaces that seemed to anticipate their users' needs. Dr. Yang Min looked up from her workstation as they approached the ship's command center. Her area was perhaps the most revolutionary of all, where human neural network architecture was being combined with alien quantum processors to create something that transcended both technologies. "The AI integration is proceeding beyond our wildest hopes," she reported, her eyes bright with excitement. "By combining human neural patterns with alien quantum computing, we've created a system that doesn't just process information, it actually thinks in ways that neither humans nor aliens do alone." Lee examined the holographic displays that showed the AI's decision-making patterns. The system was learning and adapting at a rate that amazed even its creators. It could process vast amounts of technical data like an alien computer, but also make intuitive leaps in creative connections like a human mind. "What kind of capabilities are we talking about?" Lee asked. It can predict enemy movements by analyzing their cultural patterns and psychological profiles. It can also adapt our weapon systems in real time based on what it learns about enemy defenses. Most importantly, it can coordinate all of our hybrid technologies in ways that maximize their effectiveness. As they continued their tour, Lee marveled at how the ship was becoming something that transcended its individual components. The Vorthok gravity manipulators worked in perfect harmony with the Zellian inertial dampeners, creating maneuvering capabilities that would allow the ship to perform maneuvers that would crush the crews of conventional vessels. The stealth systems from 3 different species had been integrated into a layered defense that could hide the ship from virtually any detection method. Status on the final systems? Ali asked as they reached the bridge. Park consulted his tablet. The hybrid propulsion system is online and exceeding all performance targets. The adaptive defense grid is functioning perfectly. Weapon systems are at 90% completion. We're actually ahead of schedule on most subsystems. The bridge itself was a marvel of integrated design. Human ergonomics combined with alien sensor technology created workstations that enhanced their operators' capabilities rather than simply providing information. The main view screen could display data in ways that human brains could process intuitively, while alien computational systems handled the complex calculations in the background. Communications. Officer Kim Dae approached them with a worried expression. Captain, I'm receiving priority transmissions from Earth Command. The news isn't good. Lee accepted the encrypted datapad and read quickly. His expression grew more serious with each line. Confederation scout ships have been asking questions about our progress. They're no longer content to wait for their scheduled return visit. What kind of questions? Park asked. They want to know why our mining operations in the asteroid belt have increased so dramatically. They're also asking about unusual energy signatures that their long-range sensors have detected. Lee looked around the bridge, knowing that discovery would mean the end of everything they had worked toward. Kim Dae pulled up additional intelligence reports. Earth Command estimates we have 6 months before they send a formal inquiry team. Once they arrive, they'll want to inspect our facilities personally. The implications were clear to everyone present. If the Confederation discovered what humanity was really building, they would either demand its destruction or attempt to seize it for themselves. Either outcome would leave Earth defenseless when the aliens returned with their true intentions. Then we work faster, Lee said, his voice filled with determination. This ship needs to be ready for combat trials within 4 months. We can't afford to be caught unprepared. Park nodded, already calculating the overtime schedules and resource allocation needed to meet the new deadline. It won't be easy, but it's possible. The hybrid systems are more stable than we expected, which means we can accelerate the final integration phases. As the team dispersed to spread the word about their accelerated timeline, Lee remained on the bridge, staring at the stars through the main view screen. Somewhere out there, alien ships were already planning humanity's subjugation. But they had no idea that their discarded technology was about to become the foundation of their greatest surprise. The UES Prometheus drifted silently through the asteroid field, its adaptive hull shifting colors to match the surrounding rock formations. Admiral Kim Hanna stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as 50 Confederation warships took position around Earth's solar system. The moment of truth had arrived 18 months ahead of schedule. The ship's hull rippled with energy patterns that seemed almost alive. Technologies from a dozen different alien civilizations worked together in perfect harmony, creating something that had never existed before in the galaxy. The Kalani stealth plating made them nearly invisible to enemy sensors, while Vorthok gravity manipulators allowed the ship to move in ways that defied conventional physics. Contact established. Communications Officer Kim Dae reported from his station. Ambassador Veltar is requesting immediate communication. Main view screen activated, showing the reptilian ambassador's scaled face. His expression carried the same condescending superiority that had marked their first meeting. But now there was something else underneath, impatience and barely controlled annoyance. Impressive Veltar's voice crackled through the translation. System, you've managed to build something from our generous donation. How quaint that your species has learned to weld metal together. Admiral Kim studied the tactical display showing the Confederation fleet. The ships were arranged in a perfect battle formation, with the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion at the center. That vessel alone was larger than most space stations, its hull scarred by 3,000 years of galactic warfare. No enemy had ever survived an encounter with it. "We are honored by your early return," Kim replied diplomatically, though her hand moved to the weapon controls. "Though we were not expecting such an impressive escort." Beltar's expression shifted, the false pleasantries dropping away like a discarded mask. "Your species has exceeded our expectations in the most disappointing way possible. Intelligence reports suggest you have been conducting unauthorized activities in this system." Captain Lee's voice came through the internal communication system from the engineering section. "Admiral, all systems are showing optimal performance. The hybrid configurations are more stable than our best projections indicated. We're ready for whatever comes next." The Prometheus continued its slow drift through the asteroid field, its sensors collecting detailed information about each enemy vessel. The ship's AI was already analyzing their weapon signatures, shield configurations, and maneuvering patterns. This was information that would prove invaluable in the coming battle. Earth vessels, Veltar's tone had changed completely, dropping all pretense of diplomatic courtesy. "Your species has been deemed unsuitable for independent existence. You have demonstrated dangerous tendencies toward unauthorized technological development. You will surrender immediately and accept Confederation oversight for your own protection." Kim felt a cold smile touch her lips. This was exactly what Captain Lee had predicted would happen. The Confederation had never intended to treat humanity as equals. Their gift of ancient technology had been a test, and humanity's rapid progress had triggered their true response. "I don't think so," Kim replied calmly, her finger hovering over the combat alert button. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 50 Confederation warships opened fire simultaneously, filling space with energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and exotic weapons that humanity had never encountered before. The barrage was designed to instantly destroy any vessel that dared to resist the Confederation's will. The bridge crew braced for impact, expecting to feel the ship shake under the assault. Instead, they watched in amazement as the Prometheus seemed to dance through the incoming fire. The hybrid maneuvering systems allowed the ship to perform impossible course corrections, dodging attacks that should have been unavoidable. Shields. Holding at 100%, reported Tactical Officer Park Jin.
"Ow."
"The adaptive armor is absorbing and redirecting the energy from near misses. We're actually gaining power from their attacks." Kim watched the tactical display as the Prometheus moved through the enemy formation like a predator among prey. The ship's stealth systems were working perfectly, making it difficult for the enemy to maintain target locks. Meanwhile, their own sensors were tracking every enemy vessel with perfect accuracy. "Return fire," Kim ordered. The Prometheus weapon systems activated in a carefully choreographed sequence. Brigarian plasma cannons unleashed streams of superheated matter that could melt through the strongest armor. Altoni particle beams fired, with surgical precision, targeting critical systems and weak points. Human-designed kinetic projectiles accelerated to incredible velocities, striking with the force of small asteroids. The lead Confederation cruiser, a vessel that had terrorized star systems for centuries, found itself caught in the crossfire of 3 different weapon technologies working in perfect coordination. Its shields collapsed under the hybrid assault, and secondary explosions began tearing through its hull. Within seconds, the mighty warship had become a spanning cloud of debris. "Impossible," Veltar's voice carried a note of genuine shock and disbelief. "That ship is built from obsolete components. Our technology is thousands of years old." "Your obsolete components," Kim replied with grim satisfaction. "We just learned how to use them properly." The battle continued as the Prometheus engaged multiple enemy vessels simultaneously. The ship's AI was coordinating defensive and offensive systems with inhuman precision, while the human crew provided the creative thinking that allowed them to adapt to each new threat. It was a combination that no alien species had ever encountered before. "Enemy formation is breaking apart," reported Tactical Officer Park. They're having difficulty coordinating their attacks because we're moving in patterns their computers can't predict. The Vorthok gravity manipulators were allowing the Prometheus to perform maneuvers that would have crushed the crew of any conventional vessel. The ship could accelerate, decelerate, and change direction in ways that violated every known law of space combat. Enemy targeting systems, designed to track predictable flight paths, were completely unable to keep up. Multiple enemy vessels are requesting reinforcements, Kim Day reported. They're calling for additional fleets from nearby systems. Kim studied the tactical display as several more Confederation ships fell victim to the Prometheus weapons. The enemy was learning to adapt to their tactics, but slowly and at great cost. Every minute that passed saw another enemy vessel destroyed or disabled. "Engineering report," Kim called out. Captain Lee's voice came through clearly. "All systems operating at peak efficiency. Hybrid technologies are working better together than we ever imagined. We're actually getting stronger as the battle continues, learning from each engagement." The Prometheus continued its deadly dance through the enemy formation, its adaptive systems growing more effective with each passing moment. The ship that had been built from galactic castoffs was proving to be more than a match for the Confederation's finest warships. Admiral Veltar's voice had lost all its earlier arrogance. "We demand to know how you achieve this level of technological integration. This should not be possible." Kim smiled as she watched another enemy cruiser fall to their combined weapon. "Systems. That's the difference between us and you, Ambassador. We don't see limitations where you see impossibilities. We see opportunities." The battle had been raging for 3 hours, and space around Earth blazed with the light of destroyed warships. The Prometheus moved through the Confederation fleet like a dancer performing an ancient ritual, each movement precise and deadly. Admiral Kim Hanna watched from the bridge as her ship accomplished what should have been impossible for any single vessel. Captain Lee monitored the engineering displays from deep within the ship's core, surrounded by the humming fusion of alien technologies that had become humanity's greatest weapon. The energy readings on his screens showed patterns that still amazed him, even after months of testing and preparation. Admiral Lee's voice came through the communications system, filled with wonder at what he was witnessing. "The Kalani stealth systems are working beyond our wildest expectations. Their targeting computers cannot get a stable lock on us. But our sensors are tracking every enemy vessel with perfect accuracy. We're like a ghost ship to them." Kim ducked instinctively as another massive energy blast passed close to the bridge viewports. But the ship's defensive systems handled the near miss with ease. "What about their weapons? Some of those hits looked close enough to cause damage." "That's the beautiful part," Lee replied, his excitement clear even through the static of battle communications. "The Zellian barrier matrix is not just protecting us. It's actually absorbing the energy from their attacks and feeding it into our own weapon systems. Every time they shoot at us, we become more powerful." The tactical display showed the incredible truth of his words. With each enemy attack, the Prometheus energy reserves grew larger. The alien weapons that were designed to destroy targets were instead making their opponents stronger. It was a reversal of fortune that the Confederation had never encountered. In thousands of years of galactic warfare, Dr. Parkmina called out from her monitoring station, her voice carrying both excitement and concern. "The Eternal Dominion is changing course. It's moving to intercept us directly. Admiral, that ship is twice our size and carries weapons that have cracked planets in half." Kim studied the tactical display as the massive dreadnought began its approach. The vessel was a legend throughout the galaxy, a ship that had ended rebellions and conquered star systems for 3,000 years. Its hull was scarred by countless battles, but those scars were badges of honor rather than signs of weakness. No enemy had ever survived a direct confrontation with the Eternal Dominion. "All power to forward systems," Kim ordered, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the challenge they faced. "Let's show them what happens when you underestimate humanity." The Prometheus began accelerating toward the dreadnought, its hybrid engines producing thrust patterns that confused every targeting system in the enemy fleet. The ship's movement was unlike anything in known space. Combining the brutal efficiency of human engineering with the exotic capabilities of alien technology. As the two vessels closed the distance between them, the Eternal Dominion unleashed its most devastating weapons. Beams of concentrated energy that could vaporize asteroids lanced out across space, each one carrying enough power to destroy a conventional warship. The weapons had been designed by civilizations that had mastered the art of war for millions of years, instead of trying to dodge the incoming destruction. The Prometheus did something that defied all logic and tactical doctrine. The ship flew directly into the path of the energy beams, its barrier matrix absorbing impacts that should have torn it apart. The alien technology that had been discarded as obsolete was now performing beyond its original specifications. Energy absorption at maximum capacity, Lee reported from engineering. The barrier matrix is converting their attack into usable power. We're about to have more energy than we've ever had before. Kim watched the power readings climb to levels that their computer models had said were impossible. The hybrid systems were not just working together, they were actually improving each other's performance. The result was a ship that grew stronger under attack rather than weaker. "Fire all weapons," Kim ordered. The Prometheus unleashed its full power in a single devastating barrage. Bulgarian plasma cannons fired streams of superheated matter that glowed like small suns. Altany particle beams struck with surgical precision, targeting the exact points where the dreadnought's shields were weakest. Human-designed kinetic projectiles accelerated to incredible velocities, striking with the force of meteors. The return volley carried power that should not have been possible. From a ship the size of the Prometheus, the energy that had been absorbed from the enemy's own weapons was now being returned with interest, amplified by systems that had learned to work together in ways their creators had never imagined. The massive dreadnought shuddered under the impact as its shields collapsed like paper. The follow-up shots punched through armor that had withstood the attacks of entire fleets, creating chain reactions that spread through the vessel's core systems. Within seconds, the ship that had never known defeat was breaking apart, its hull splitting along stress lines that had never been tested. The explosion that followed lit up the entire solar system. The Eternal Dominion, pride of the Confederation. Fleet died in a cascade of fire and debris that spread across thousands of kilometers of space. The impossible had become reality. The galaxy's most feared warship was nothing more than expanding wreckage. The remaining Confederation vessels, witnessing the destruction of their flagship, began to retreat in disorder. Ships that had arrived, with absolute confidence in their superiority, were now fleeing in panic, their crews unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. "Multiple enemy vessels are jumping to hyperspace," reported Communications Officer Kim Day. "They're transmitting emergency signals to all Confederation forces." As the last enemy ships disappeared into the darkness of space, Captain Lee received an unexpected transmission from the outer colonies. The news was remarkable and filled with hope for the future. Admiral Lee called out, his voice filled with excitement. "We're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Other species are rising up against Confederation rule. Our victory here has inspired rebellions on dozens of worlds. The galaxy is watching, and they're not afraid anymore." Kim nodded, understanding the true significance of what had happened. The battle had been about more than just defending Earth. It had been about proving that the Confederation's grip on power was not absolute, that their technological superiority could be overcome by innovation and determination. Status report. Kim called out as the last enemy ship vanished into hyperspace. "All systems showing green across the board," Lee replied with a grin that could be heard in his voice. "The scrap metal they gave us is holding together perfectly. In fact, I think we're in better condition now than when we started the battle." Kim smiled as she looked at the stars ahead, knowing that humanity's relationship with the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer a primitive species begging for acceptance, but a new power that had earned respect through strength and ingenuity. "Set course for Earth," she ordered. "We have a galaxy to introduce ourselves to properly.